Yep, I'm a railroad man now. Just hauling these here stealing gots off of processing. Cross this here Wild West prairie on my way to Inverness. A few things off the bat, this game is early access. I think I will approach early access games on the basis of what is at the moment I play them. So this is neither a review, nor a feature presentation for what the game might possess in the future. More a demo of the current state of play. This will probably be my approach with all future early access games, as I kind of avoided doing them for a while. My second bit of admin, I got this key for free, with no obligations. This is one of the first games I've been offered a key for that had previously been on my wishlist, so I expect at least some of you to behave and find a place to tout this for me, so as not to show me up in front of the devs. This will allow me to demonstrate value, before moving on to nurturing their dependents. Admin over. I love the idea of transport sims. Generally I suck at them. I looked from afar at the earlier Railroad Tycoon games, but rarely played them back in the olden days, and certainly not enough to develop a solid understanding of various signals and such. The transport games I played decades ago were not as intuitive as the grand strategy and hex-based war games, or real-time strategy games I was more inclined to play during my wild and irresponsible gaming youth. I have in more recent years picked up the occasional transport game, Transport Fever, Cities in Motion, Railway Empire, and various others. Up until now, Transport Fever was my favourite. I spent a good bit of time with all of these games, but generally ended up feeling fairly overwhelmed with the late game management of multiple lines and links and chains of production, all the while lacking a core understanding and never really fully grasping the mechanics of exactly what I was doing. By which I mean basically the most fundamental aspect, which is the signalling. Mashinky, I think, might have taught me some essential missing transport sim skills, and along the way I have had no shortage of enjoyment. My earlier games resulted in a lot of crashed trains. This left me a little upset at the lack of a specific line management screen, making it easier to replace or even know which trains had crashed. This is one of those transport sims that instead focus on the management of individual vehicles, at least so far as I can tell. This at first struck me as strange with my more limited experience with transport games, but despite my hesitation I steamed on. Despite me generally feeling like I understand adding trains to lines with set routes, more intuitively than having to manage individual routes of individual trains. And despite these initial hurdles, I have to say, thanks to the devs, I finally understand railway signals, or at least this game's railway signals. Getting a nice little network of trains all pottering about is fairly satisfying. The incremental complexity of the maps does a good job at granularly easing off an initial sense of overwhelmedness, before opening up and expanding as your lines develop. The game also has a novel management of funds and profit, whereby resources are the means by which you will purchase trains, stations, tracks, and the various enhancements to stations and resource production areas. You will also need to maintain a steady supply of these resources to keep your trains running. I find this adds a more direct reason to interact with the map's resources, rather than just a desire to balance the books. Complexity in this game develops based on the resources you wish to acquire. If you want shiny new trains, then you will have to manage production chains, some with multiple stages. These can become no less complicated than any other transport sim I have played. Mashinky features two main modes of engaging with the game, a more detailed and honestly pretty nice looking graphical mode. This seems to be designed more for the eyes than for gameplay, and a much more graphically clear mode designed for, designing your tracks. I spend the bulk of my time in the more graphically clear mode, and I think the game would stand tall even if it didn't have the more aesthetically pleasing option. It could even have worked if they'd just enabled editing in the more advanced mode, but the inclusion of both is a nice touch. So far the game only features trains, but will feature roads, planes, and perhaps also boats. There is currently technology ranging from early steam up until the early electric trains, which to my shame I have yet to advance to, and without spending too much time focusing on what the game will include in the future, monorails and maglevs are also supposed to be included in its final state. So a pretty broad range of technologies, which should be pretty interesting. That said, unlike many early access games, Mashinky is, from my perspective, a fully functioning, sufficiently featured train sim, with straightforward and relatively intuitive construction and management of your trains, maps that encourage expansion, with the benefits of both clearer, more potentially abstractly presented but functional games, combined with all of the bells and whistles of visually appealing games. For the screenshot takers amongst you, it should appeal to a wide range of transport sim fans. Mashinky is currently just shy of 20 quid and represents one of my better experiences with an early access title. I was lucky
in that my failing YouTube channel qualified me for a free key. However, had I bought this with my own limited and real goth pounds, I would be entirely satisfied. So until I find another excuse to cover this game pre-release, or else review it in its final form, I'm going to get back to it. I've got some technology to unlock and some high-speed railway lines to lay. So you know, like, share, and all of those YouTubey things that I'm probably supposed to ask for at the end of every one of my videos, but rarely do. And thanks for watching.